Hi, I'm Brad Favreau, and welcome to another edition of Believe in Biddeford. Next week, February 15th through the 22nd, is National Entrepreneurship Week, and Biddeford and SACA will be participating with a number of events. Entrepreneurship Week is actually a congressionally chartered initiative. Biddeford and SACA has been participating for the past perhaps 5 or more years. So we're going to talk a little bit about the events that are coming up. But before we do that, I want to talk to our panelists about generally what it takes to start a business and keep a business, and in the end, maybe exit a business. So my panelists are, from my far right, Jim LaBelle. He is the Executive Director of the Biddeford-Saco Chamber of Commerce. Laura Warner is the Vice President of Business Banking at Biddeford Savings and Loan. Brad Curie, the Senior Area Manager for the Small Business Administration, and Molly Guillereau, Portfolio Manager at Biddeford Savings Bank. So Brad, I'm going to start with you. Can you help us understand what an entrepreneur is?
Well, in my view, an entrepreneur would be a visionary, a problem solver, a leader, and a risk taker. They're basically a person that's willing to work 80 hours a week for themselves so they don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what qualities make a good entrepreneur?
Dedication, being able to see outside of the box, the ability to train and mentor others. Because most of the time, eventually, as you grow, you're going to hire employees. You have to have good communication skills so that you can build those relationships with partners, with bankers, and other suppliers that you maybe need as well. Mm-hmm. Just a really good attitude to try to be successful.
And it seems like you must be have a low tolerance for risk.
Yeah, you have to be able to be willing to take risks. You'll be investing your own money, your own time, a lot of it. So you have to be able to be willing to take those risks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brad, if I could add on to that, in Biddeford, it's certainly a French heritage community. The word entrepreneur, it's a fun word actually. It's a French derivation word. It literally means an undertaking, and I think that's exactly what it is. It's somebody going on an adventure to start a business.
Yes, yes.
And if you think of every business that has ever existed in the United States or in Biddeford, at one point it was an entrepreneur that started it. So, all exactly businesses, right. Large businesses were once dreams and ideas that somebody took a risk on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good point, yes. So I'll throw this out to all of you because you're all involved in different ways. What is involved in starting a new business? If I have an idea and I am calling myself an entrepreneur, but I don't know really the first step of getting my idea or my product out to market, where do I go? Who do I talk to?
Well, I'll start if you don't mind on that. That's how a lot of businesses get started. Somebody with an idea, somebody who's been working in that field for years, and they've become very proficient at it, and they see an opportunity that they'd like to implement changes in how that is done, so they want to start their own business. Mm-hmm. But they don't have the business knowledge. They haven't had that type of experience. And that's where SBA, all the resource partners, and so many different community resources are there to be able to help do that. So there's really a lot to it. You have to do a lot of market research. You have to be able to find out who exactly your customers are, what they want, how they want it, how much they're willing to pay for it. So a large majority of prepping to start your business is market research. Mm-hmm. Where are your competitors at as well? And so it's not just, I have this idea, everybody wants to buy it. You have to really find out who it is. That's the main one that I'd like to put out there is your market research.
And that kind of work you put into something called a business plan.
Correct.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about a business plan. It's defining the problem you're trying to solve or the product you're trying to market. You closely monitor existing players in that market. What else is involved in a business plan?
You want to make sure you have a clear, concise vision of what you're trying to do. Your financials, your projections, how much you're going to sell it for, how much it's going to cost you to produce each unit or provide that service. You also want to predict some potential roadblocks you may have, some risks, and how your business can get around those as well. You use that business plan to apply for funding, whether it's going to be debt related or it's going to be equity related, and then also to I like to tell people to use it also with your employees, because then it empowers them if they understand what your business vision is, what your mission is, what you're really trying to accomplish with your business, then your employees are more empowered as well. So share that portion of your business plan with them too.
So there's a tremendous amount of research that goes into that. I wonder if you could add a few more words around debt and equity, because I want to make sure our audience understands what those two terms mean and how they apply to starting a business.
Right.
I'll let some other people talk a little bit.
I think equity, the majority of the time, equity is, when you're starting out a business, you have to be prepared to invest some of your own funds, and quite often it could be, get funding privately, or family is a big resource for someone to start a new business. And then, then you should, prepare that how much you will need to start a business. You'll have to have an idea how much you will need to start a business, how much you can contribute on your private source, and then find other sources that's available to help you get started. Bank is one, and then there's a lot of small agencies, like SBA is one of them, economic development, in different city and town, municipality have that available that could help them to start the business, but you just have to do some research to learn that. Yeah.
We've had a lot of entrepreneurs as of late in the last couple of years open up new businesses in Biddeford, and many join the chamber. We're a nonprofit association where members come together, and a couple of things we hear from entrepreneurs is the first thing is things come up that are unexpected. So you build a plan, but it is good to have some reserves because there's always expenses that you don't anticipate. The other piece is you can develop a plan based on research, but you want it to be a living plan. And I guess by that I mean you're receiving feedback constantly from your customers, whether you're selling a good or a service, and your business may evolve over time. So keeping that fresh and being able to kind of pivot as you grow your business is pretty essential too.
Yeah, I like how you said it is a living, breathing document. You're constantly adjusting it as your business grows. You started off with typically a 3-year projection of where you're wanting to go, and as you see how your customers like your product or how they would like you to modify your product, you modify that and you keep moving it along. Yes.
Okay, so getting back to debt and equity. Equity is really your portion of the ownership in the company. Is that fair to say?
Or your contribution, your investment into the business.
Yeah.
Your cash or other sources, right? Yeah.
Yep. And then debt, of course, is more self-explanatory. It's what you borrow from lending institutions to help you finance the remainder of what you need.
Right.
Okay. All right, good. More broadly speaking, what or how do small businesses strengthen a community? Here in Biddeford, we've seen just a plethora of new businesses pop up in the last 4 or 5 years, in the downtown area especially. And we see the results, but how do you get from new businesses opening up to a really vibrant downtown?
I'll start and maybe we can all speak, but there's a couple of interesting statistics about small businesses, Brad, especially in Maine. We often say Maine it's made up of small businesses. I think more than 97% of the businesses in Maine are considered small businesses, and more than half of us as residents that employees work for small businesses. So first and foremost, that creation of new businesses and that entrepreneurial spirit really drives our economy forward and creates jobs.
Creates
and
jobs.
Compared to say 10 years ago, we're very fortunate now in 2020 that unemployment is very low, there's lots of positions available, but that job creation, that aspect of capitalism where owners are taking risks and creating ventures and growing their business, it's just essential for a strong community to have people working, and it's great for communities when businesses are opening and jobs are being created. We're attracting new people to come work here and live here, so it's pretty core to every community is that small business development and growth.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that small businesses coming into a market, coming into Main Street, really create a cohesive community. We need people to want to not only start businesses and employ people, but also to give back. And so those businesses are what draw people downtown because they may have a common goal to enhance the community that they're in. I think that's what we're seeing in downtown Biddeford and Saco, is that these new businesses are coming in and they want to make it a better place. It's not just for them to profit and to, have a successful business, but they're looking to create this fabric that comes together that creates the community that we're in.
Well, that's a good word you used, fabric, because new businesses downtown bring new feet on the street. And if there are people walking up and down Main Street, then I might want to stop by the hot new restaurant, but there's also a bar that I like very much, and I'll stop by there first. Right. Or the City Theater. People are drawn to the City Theater. It's an anchor downtown, but hey, let's grab a bite to eat before that, and there's this great new gift shop. So they feed on one another and feed each other directly too. Yep. So that's kind of what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then another point I always, get some satisfaction out of my job is when you help a small business start up, you kind of essentially you help someone's dream come true, because they have this vision that this is what they wanted to do. They might be working for someone for a long, long time, and this is something that they do. They want to one day own their own business, and I'm very proud to be the fact that once in a while I help someone's dream come true. Yeah.
Molly, that's a great point. Brad alluded earlier talking about entrepreneurs and working long hours. I think you said 80-hour weeks, but a lot of us, many of us, it's almost part and parcel with the American dream. This idea of owning your own business and what are you passionate about.
It really
and
is.
It really does take passion to commit to wearing all the hats that you have to wear to start a business. And it's neat to see folks living that dream. So right in Biddeford downtown, for example, the folks over at Lorne, they love wine, and you see it when you interact with them and the way they conduct their business. And right up and down Main Street and through all the shops and companies here, people are really passionate about what they do, and it's great that they can follow that passion and own their own business or work for a business that they're passionate about.
Right, definitely.
Right. Brad, you're with the Small Business Administration. I wonder, we've all heard the term Small Business Administration, or abbreviated SBA, but tell us exactly what the SBA does and really what your own job entails.
Okay. Well, the SBA is a federal agency. It was created in 1953 to help strengthen the American economy. And it originally started doing that mainly from providing direct loans to small businesses and entrepreneurs so that they could start and grow their businesses. And it's continued to do that, but less so as direct lending. But we do it through our lending partners, as well as providing counseling, the counseling, the capital that I just mentioned as well, export assistance, assistance with government contracting, disaster assistance as well. Whenever there's a disaster, happening and you see FEMA on the ground, the SBA is right down there as well, helping people recover from that disaster, not just business owners, but also homeowners and people who are renting as well that were in that disaster area. So even you don't even have to be a business owner to do that and get that assistance. But all that, and we bundle it all together, and the majority of all that is free. So all the mentorship and the advising that our resource partners do, which would be the Small Business Development Center, the SCORE chapters, the Women's Business Center, and the Veteran Business Outreach Centers, they all provide free business advising and mentorship. And then also, on top of that, workshops. Here in Maine, we're very lucky to have all of these organizations also provide their workshops free, with the exception of like one workshop where they had to bring somebody in for QuickBooks, for example. But everything else they do is completely free. And it's a great resource because they're all extremely knowledgeable. They've had the experience in the past. They've either owned businesses, some own their own marketing companies right now, and they're volunteering at SCORE to provide that information out as well. So it's great information, and it's always good to have somebody else look at what you're doing to give that other insight as well. My job, I'm sorry.
I was going to say that professional help and that government resource that's free, it's just invaluable because you think about a lot of entrepreneurs, we were talking about passion, they're passionate about what they do. So for example, I'm thinking of Tom and Barb Peacock over at Dizzy Birds. Great idea, and they love food, but managing a business entails some other skills too in terms of looking at P&Ls and projecting cash flow. So to have that resource of the SBA and the SBDC, the SCORE mentors, and you can access all of that free. It's a fantastic service. So we love having Brad and the SBA in the area to help.
Yeah.
I would add to that with it, when someone, a new business wants to come in and they're looking for funding from a bank, the first thing we ask is, do you have a business plan? And the second thing we ask is, has it been reviewed by someone? Because you really need professional advice and someone else to take a look at it outside of you to see what you've missed, because you live and breathe it. And these people are so passionate about what they do, they're not thinking about the business side of it all the time. So that's an opportunity for them to get some excellent outside advice and then come back to us, and it helps kind of the bank validate what they're giving to us, which is very, very helpful.
Right. And Brad, do you review draft business plans that would-be entrepreneurs submit to you? Do you personally do that, or do you have other folks that do that?
I don't personally do that. I'm not an advisor for small businesses, but that would get referred over to our resource partners. A lot of times I'll sit down with a small business owner, find out what they're doing, where they're at in their business, either if they've already started or if they're trying to plan something, and then get them in contact and refer them over to the appropriate resource partner that would best appropriately work for them.
And is there one person in the area that that most of these referrals go to?
In Biddeford, the Small Business Development Center has an office here, and the lady that's just recently taken over and become the advisor here is Ann Lancaster.
Ann Lancaster.
Correct. And just up the street also is the Portland SCORE chapter, who was the 2019 SCORE chapter of the year nationwide. So they do a phenomenal job, and it's a wonderful resource as well.
And where's your office?
My office is in the Custom House in Portland.
Okay.
I cover York and Cumberland County, so my office is just about wherever anybody needs me.
Okay. And where's Ann Lancaster located?
Her office is inside or co-located with the Southern Maine Finance Authority.
Okay, and that's at 20 Pomerleau Street.
Correct.
20 Pomerleau Street is in the Alfred Road Industrial Park, all the way at the end of Pomerleau Street. Not too hard to miss. The would-be entrepreneur has a respectable business plan, has some cash that they can put up themselves, and then they go to the banks. They go to Molly and Laura. So I wonder if you two could explain the process of what you look for in a strong business plan and what the next steps are to actually providing a loan to an entrepreneur.
Okay. When I review the package that our prospect, potential customer bring in, and the first thing is I look for reasonableness in their business plan and in their projection. I think that's, if you're looking for, if their projection is, you don't think it's realistic, and or if what their financial need that is maybe too low or maybe too high, you got to start with that. Make sure and understand where they get the information and if it makes sense, and and you interview with your potential customer and make sure they understand the magnitude of their project they're taking on and the financial commitment they're making. Not just their blood, sweat, and tears and the financial and what's that involved, and not just the business, also personally. You got to look at the whole picture to make sure that it makes sense. It makes sense. It's reasonable, and it's
realistic.
Realistic. That's the key. Because there are times that people have very, we have passionate about their idea, and they had this really, really high level expectation that, and sometimes you have to kind of show them that reality, or kind of in a gentle way that, show them, make sure the plan they make, it is realistic, it's doable. That's the first step.
Okay.
That's from my experience. Yeah.
It's an extensive interview process. And my favorite thing to do is, let's say they make cupcakes. Is just sit down and say, how many cupcakes do you have to make in a month to cover your expenses to break even? And unfortunately, or fortunately, a lot of times that's a very eye-opening question to people, because they don't take a step back and really think about, they've done the financial projections, but when you put that number out there, is it reasonable? Is it attainable? And it makes some people step back and say, I've got to rethink this, or I've got to rethink how much I'm borrowing, or the scale of my operation to start with, because it's a bit of a shot in the dark sometimes when you have so much passion about what you're trying to do.
Right.
And then there's the reality of borrowing the money, possibly mortgaging your home, putting, things up that are very important to you that you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
So sounds like you really have to nail down your unit cost
Generally, I mean,
to get
it's
to the point where this is how much money I need to.
right.
Yeah.
I feel like it becomes more of a philosophical question of, how many of one do I have to sell? I mean, it's a serious question, but it's just trying to get people to think that, are there enough people in this community that are going to enter my shop and use my service or buy my good that I can make this work?
Right.
And sometimes that's a
Yeah.
eye-opening question
Yeah.
to people, or the answer is very eye-opening.
Jim, I imagine that people come into your office from time to time who are interested in starting a new business. What advice do you give them, and perhaps where do you send them along to get additional advice?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Listening to this, you're doing research and you're evaluating and you're doing analysis, and it makes me think, boy, the more you think about the risk factors here, it can be daunting. It is taking a leap of being an entrepreneur. But I think if you fall back on what has brought you to this place already, you've probably dabbled in it a bit, or you've sold some products or services depending on what you've done. So not to think of it as a leap of faith, but a continuity of expertise that you're already establishing. But I think we've talked about some of the important steps. Talk to third parties, talk to experts, try to get a better sense of the market. Certainly, we like to point people to the Economic Development Department, Brad, you and Matt, and folks at the city. There are certain businesses that require licenses. I don't think every business does.
That's a very good point. Yes,
so, for
there
example, if you're going to be in the food business, there's extra steps that you need to take when you start that business.
Yes.
But fall back on your passion, and don't be afraid to make those steps or those leaps, because I think sometimes you can evaluate things too much. If you think you have a good idea, sometimes trust your gut and move forward, and try to do it in a way that limits your risk factor. But most people, they're not just coming up with something and borrowing tens of thousands of dollars and hoping that it succeeds. It's the continuity of something that they've either developed an expertise in, or they've been doing it for a little bit. So it's a path, and it's an adventure and a journey. I think when we talk about it sometimes at a theoretical level, it sounds like this risky kind of situation, and there are times like that. But follow your passion is probably a good advice, but get some experts that can help you along the way.
Yeah. So it sounds like an entrepreneur might want to get from point A to point B very quickly, But as I'm listening to you all, it sounds like it is a journey. Pay attention to the journey between point A and point B, which will lead you to a much more successful arrival at point B.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of the new business that people don't see the back, the scene in the back, that how they get there. The chicken. I'm sorry.
Dizzy birds.
Dizzy birds. And like you said, they know how to cook, but they prepare to get to there until they can open the storefront. There's quite a few steps they had to do to get there, right?
So
I'm thinking of a very good example on that regard too. Of you can come up with a great service, but you've got to market it too. So I'm thinking there's a new company, Broadreach Sailing. They offer sailing expeditions in the summer. Bob and Abby Lynn Haskell in Biddeford, wonderful folks, great sailors, but they've had to learn how to market that business. How do you get people to understand what you offer and get them signed up? And it's an iterative process. So, and I give Bob credit. He's tried lots of different experiments of marketing and where to go, and his messaging and how to promote his business. So there's an aspect of being really good at what you do, providing that service, but you've got to get people to know about it too. So there's a marketing component that's pretty important too. So again, there's a lot of hats you're wearing as a business owner, especially when you start up and it's you and maybe a family member and somebody else. And over time, if you grow the business, you certainly specialize in roles, but right out of the gates, you're kind of doing it all.
It's you, yeah.
But that brings up a good point, because as a banker, we always look for who's on your team, who's your accountant, who do you go to for, who's your attorney.
Who do you
use for
surround
marketing?
yourself with?
Exactly.
Who can help you
Right.
succeed?
Who are your business partners that you need to make this happen?
Yeah.
Because they've got to know how to run the business and have the passion of whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
But they don't have to do it alone.
Yeah,
And
that's a
it's
great point.
very comforting when someone comes in and we ask those questions and they say, yes, this is who I'm using for X, Y, and Z. And then that's definitely part of the conversation that we feel better about.
Yeah, yeah. So often we have people come into our office at City Hall and they want to know, okay, I want to start a business. Show me a couple of storefronts that I can open up in. Well, do you have a business plan? No. Have you talked to Brad Curry over at the Small Business Administration? No. Picking a location is the last thing on your list of to-dos. I mean, there's so much homework before you get to that point, but that seems to be ingrained in people's heads that, to start a business, you first have to have a home. But a storefront, or perhaps it's an industrial space if you're not a retailer, but finding a location for your business really should be among the last things you look for, because there's so many other things here that are important. Well, let's move on to growth. An entrepreneur has started a relatively successful business. Perhaps 2 years into the new business, they're like, ooh, I could do more units per hour if I only had X, a new machine, a bigger space, more employees, whatever it is. So what would you recommend in terms of advising that a person in that, right on the cusp of growth, to get to that next step, that next level of production, let's say?
All right. I think I think part of that is preparation. You know that I am outgrowing. I'm making, for follow up on Laura's example, making cupcakes. My demand, exceed what I can produce. How can I increase my production? What equipment I need? Then you have to, figure out how much it costs for the expansion. What you need. The same thing. You have to, do some research. How much expansion? How much it costs you to expand your business and the production, and then if you really feel that there is a demand for your product out there, then you go back, more or less go back to drawing board, do another projection, say the next 3 to 5 years, if I can do this much business, either 5%, the growth, based on your growth, and you feel business can support this need, you know, and as a banker, that this is, we will work, when we have customer come to see us, we'll work with them to figure out what is it they need, what they see there, how the business is going to grow, and how much they can, if the need they feel that, the growth they need can be supported by the business.
So
you want to grow, but as you almost alluded to with the question, growth can be a challenge at times.
Right,
When
yeah.
you hire
Yes.
people, when do you invest in new machinery,
Yeah.
And to know
go
when.
from a 1 or 2 person operation to a 100-person company. There's just lots of steps along the way where you're making those additional investments. But again, we talked about a business plan being a living, breathing thing, and listening to your customers. If your customers are asking you for more product, that demand, you're generating demand, that's great. You've got to be responsive to it, and it can be a challenge. As much as starting a business can be a challenge, growing it and finding financing to make those investments to keep moving it forward, it's definitely something you got to be thoughtful about. But often if you pay close attention to what your customers are telling you and the demand signals, you'll have a pretty good sense of where you're heading.
Right.
The SBA has a program called Emerging Leaders, and we've did it the last 2 years here in Maine, but it's been going around for about 11, 12 years across the country. And it's a 6-month program that helps that business owner put together a growth plan. We held it, I was the program manager, we held it in Brunswick this past year, graduated 9 people from it. Some of them came from the Kennebunk and Biddeford area, stuff like that as well. But one of the things for that I really noticed was, in order to grow, you have to be able to delegate. You have to be able to hire, mentor your staff to be able to take over for you so that you can work on your business more to be able to grow. Because if you're constantly working in your business, you don't have much time to work on your business to be able to get it to grow.
Right. Right. An interesting segment of the small businesses appearing in Biddeford over the last 5 years have been women-owned businesses. Let's talk about that for a minute. There's a few examples would be Biscuits and Company on Alfred Street, Trillium on Main Street. Help me out there. I know there are many more.
Angel Rocks?
Angel Rocks, yes. Angel Rocks on Alfred Street.
The Maine Pie Company, Night Moves.
Yeah.
There's
Night
several.
Moves, yes, yes, one of my favorite. Are there specific obstacles that face women-owned businesses that may not face, a man that go in for the same type of business, same type of financing? Or obstacles in general?
Well, I think the opportunity to get financing, there's no gender issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a we still a lot of women still learning that there's a lot of resources out there that they're not aware of. Like the last year we had the women business owner panel, and we had a really, really good turnout. And majority of the people either, they are starting a business or want to start a business. The general remark from them is they don't realize that the resources out there, it's available to not just women, to all the entrepreneur want to grow or start a business. Mm-hmm. The resource available that you just discussed, and to start a business, to help to grow a business. And that's the part that I think we have to do a better job to let the message be out there.
So are you saying that perhaps for whatever reason women are a little less likely to start a business, go the entrepreneurship route because they don't know what's available and they don't know
Right.
the resources that they can take advantage of?
Right. We were really surprised about, from
Yeah.
that comment. Yeah, that's the general comment. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And there are a lot of resources out there specifically for women who are looking to get into business. The SCORE chapter, the Women's Business Center, and my bosses, Amy Bassett and Diane Sturgeon, that are the district director and deputy district director up in Augusta, they've been collaborating to put on different women specialized events. March 30th at the Portland Public Library, they'll be putting on a women entrepreneurship event there as well. It'll be a couple hours long, and some of the speakers actually, I'm terrible with names, but the owner of Sea Bags, she's one of the featured speakers that's at that event as well. So these events and many others are very motivational for women to be able to say, yeah, I can do this too.
Yeah.
Well, and closer to home, we do have the session that Biddeford Savings is sponsoring on women-owned businesses.
Yes.
Right.
So I think as part of Entrepreneur Week, that will be a good forum to have those kind of questions
Right. So,
raised.
I'm involved in an advisory council for New Ventures Maine, as another example, which is out of the University of Augusta, and it's a statewide program that has offices statewide. That it's for men and women, but it's primarily for women who have an idea and want to start a business, and how they balance that transition from either being a stay-at-home mom or working full-time, and how to transition into that business. They originally started as back 50 years ago, for people that typically their husbands had maintained all the finances and been the breadwinner, and then maybe something happened and they were in the picture. Now what does the woman do? And it was an organization to support that. But it's evolved, which is wonderful. It's evolved greatly into what it is now, which is a resource for women to start businesses. One of our great success stories is Coffee by Design. They started their business with going through our program. Yeah. So there are tons of things out there.
Another one too, if I may, there's government certifications. If there's businesses that want to sell to the government, there's actually a women-owned small business certification that they can get to be able to sell to the federal government, which the federal government has a goal of 23% of their purchases to go towards small businesses, and in addition to that, 5% to go towards women-owned small businesses.
And another part, I imagine, towards minorities or
Correct. Minority-owned small businesses, veteran-owned small businesses, hub zones, which are historically underutilized business zones, which a part of Sanford is in a hub zone as well, for the closest area anyway to here, and then small disadvantaged businesses as well.
Yep.
In the 8A program.
So that's probably a common thread we're hearing. I imagine as an entrepreneur, late nights, you sometimes feel like, geez, I'm doing this all on my own. But the message is there's a lot of resources in the community to help. Certainly SBA and the government, great banks. The Chamber is a resource. You know, we're an association of businesses that tries to help promote business success and promote the community. So if people join the Chamber, that's an opportunity for them to interact with other business owners too. And we're thankful Laura now is on our board, and Brad works closely with us. So it's we want entrepreneurs to not feel like they're out there on their own. There's a community that wants them to be successful, and we're here to help.
Right, and I imagine all the members of the Chamber of Commerce are eager to help one another out. If any issues arise that a business owner may not know how to deal with, they can count on their peers, their fellow members of the Chamber of Commerce.
You're exactly right, Brad. Business owners, they live in the community. They want the community to be successful. They want to support other entrepreneurs just like they were supported when they started their business. So it is it's an association of people that are rooting for each other to be successful, and we see that time and time again, that people love working with each other. They love understanding what others are doing, and if they can be a supplier or a customer to somebody locally, it just helps the community. Once a year we celebrate Small Business Saturday, right after Thanksgiving. But really every day we should be thoughtful about small businesses. It's very easy to go on to Amazon.com and buy something and have it show up at your door.
Easy.
It is, and they've got a good business model. It's very convenient. But every time you do that, think about that money is leaving Maine and it's not going to come back. It's up there with Jeff Bezos in Seattle.
Yeah.
If we work with each other and we can buy things locally, often for the same prices and better support and service, that money stays here and recirculates, and we build our community and we get more jobs. So sometimes being a little bit more thoughtful about the services we use and the way we spend our money could really help our local community.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's very true. And as I've said many times, feet on the street, that's what makes a vibrant community. Feet on Main Street, and visiting your local gift shop or your local bakery helps to do exactly that. So we talked a little bit about starting a business. We talked a little bit about growing a business. So there's stages of business. Brad, I wonder if you could add to that what other stages of business are.
Planning, launching, managing and growing your business, and then eventually exiting your business, either through a succession plan to a family member, or selling it, or an employee to ownership type of situation. So basically, that kind of covers all of it as far as going from planning it and launching it. Those are the two major parts of it, and then just managing it and growing it.
Mm-hmm. Now, when suppose I've been running a business for 5 years, and for whatever reason I find that it's not working for me anymore. Is a successful business, but maybe for personal reasons I'm no longer able to carry the business. What are some of those exit strategies? You mentioned a couple, but how do I get myself out gracefully?
And depending on how you've worked up to that point, as you're doing it, you may have built that business based on, this is something I want my kids to take over. Or you've had a great employee that you've been mentoring for years that's been working for you and has become a manager for you. So there's different ways you can work that over. And I think, going back to our resource partners, I know SCORE, they have a subject matter expert there that owns his own business as a business broker, and will be able to give advice, through the means of SCORE, of how to start doing that as well, and how to pre-plan for that.
Pre-plan. Is it important to think about an exit strategy
Most
at
definitely.
the very beginning when you're developing your business plan?
You want to have it in there, in my opinion. It's not something that's probably like on the forefront of your mind and trying to organize everything to get started, but you're going to eventually leave that business in one way or another.
Right.
You're either going to retire, you get too old, pass away, can't work in it anymore, or you decide, hey, this has been a fun ride. I want to get out and I'm going to start a new venture. So there's different reasons why you would leave that business, and you'll kind of know that at the beginning too, what your idea is for your business.
To Brad's point, I was just going to say, to Brad's point, that's when you get your business partners and, your business attorney, your accountant. Those are conversations you want to be having year 1, year 3, year 5, year 10, where they're going to help you either restructure or start planning for that day. And so that's why they're so important, because they're working with you on the whole from start to finish.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about starting a business, and that's an entrepreneur, and we're celebrating Entrepreneur Week, but certainly a business, you can think of it as an asset, right, that is producing a certain level of cash or profit per year. You could sell that business, and there are lots of entrepreneurs that want to buy an existing business versus start something on their own. So sometimes it's a passion for you to start a business. Sometimes it's just a good cash flow business opportunity to buy an existing business because you see it as a good investment for your money. And so business owners, you can buy just like a house. You can buy a business, you can sell a business, or you can have a succession plan for a relative or a colleague to take over the company. But it's very important to think about that, and Laura makes a great point too. There are legal implications, tax implications to these things. So again, using your experts to help you kind of plan for the future is important.
And there are good business broker out there, very many commercial, broker out there. We think of broker without them selling real estate building, but there are business broker out there that they can help you to plan. If you have planned you next 3 or 5 years you want to sell, they might be able to guide you as well. They should be able to guide you as well, that how to be prepared for that, how to market your business, and that's hard, And then one of the option is try to sell your business to your competitor.
Oh, right. That happens all the time.
Yep. So for whatever reason, personal reason or business reason, and that is sometimes you have a good product and your competitor, that's one way for them to have access to your product, or merchandise, in your business. Right?
But going back to the very beginning, does it look good to financial institutions and to people like Brad who are taking a look at business plans that you've thought that far ahead and at least given some consideration to an exit strategy? Does that add?
Well,
From
I
the
love a
banking
good I
view.
love a good plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a great way. I haven't run across that very much, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's, my son works with me or my daughter works with me, and I want to set it up for him or her to take it over. Yes, but yeah.
As long as you're not overlooking the other essential things that you need to have in your business plan, and just jumping to the end. It's good to kind of have that in there, but you got to make sure you have all the other portions of that business plan together.
Sure.
And you show that you've really done your homework. The lender, when they read that, they're going to be like, okay, this person is really, they've really looked into what they're going to do, what their hazards are, and eventually how they plan to get out of it. But that's really not, I don't think,
Well, the majority of what I see is not people who are starting a business with looking at what they can cash out with, in 5 or 10 years. Personally, I do much more community banking where I'm hoping to bank someone that's in business for 100 years and just trying to move forward. So, but there are those businesses out there that's what people are trying to do. And then I hope that they've worked with, again, going back to the attorney and the accountant, that they've shown how they're going to get to that plan and then have a successful sale and execute that sale for their gain. So.
Yep.
exactly.
So we've covered the stages of a business. What else would any of you like us to know about starting, growing, or exiting your business?
Maybe each person can say, but in Biddeford, I think it surprises people. We have a lot of very innovative companies doing world-class things and growing companies. I think
We
about
absolutely do.
the Hyperlight guy starting in a kitchen, and 10 years later they've got 100 employees. There's some really interesting things happening in Biddeford in the industrial parks and in Main Street. There's a lot of commercial development and retail development, but some real great innovative manufacturing companies too. So this has become quite a hub for southern Maine, and it's exciting to see.
It absolutely has, and I'll add to that. There are things going on in the industrial parks that are really very high tech. Companies that tend to fly under the radar. They don't want a lot of attention, but Biddeford is really a center for high tech and innovative manufacturing, especially. Yes, good point.
I would just say, I've lived here my whole life. I'm very proud of what's happened in Biddeford over the years. And it's very rewarding to be a Main Street banker, community banker here, and be able to help people and become that partner. And I think that if I was going to say someone starting a business, find the partner and find those people that you connect with and you can work with, and you're not afraid to send a text late at night and say, hey, I was thinking about this. I mean, that's the relationship I have with a lot of my customers, and I think it's really important that they find that person they can grow with and will really cares about what they're trying to do. So.
I could go on and on for a lot more time than what we have on different ways to build your business and expand your business, the different programs, services that SBA has and everything. So one, I would encourage you, one of the events that I'm doing is I'm holding SBA office hours at Think Tank on the 19th from 8 to 10 in the morning.
And we'll get to more of those in a moment.
To jump ahead on that, sorry. But probably to put out there, you don't know what you don't know. Build relationships with our resource partners, with your bank, with your lenders. Even if you don't need money right now, but you've been working with this lender for a while in your personal ways, go ahead and build that relationship. Go and say, hey, I'm starting this business, and I don't need money right now, but I'm looking to open up in a few months. So at that point, I may come to you for some business. And they'll remember that. Also with your lawyer, with your banker, or with your accountant, with your insurance agent, with your suppliers, and ultimately with your customers once you've opened and stuff. You want to build those relationships with your customers so they keep coming back too.
Right. Right. Anything you'd like to add, Molly?
I think that, it's important that, you develop a good relationship with your bankers, and then even like, echo what you said, if you don't have the immediate need right now, it's, that's our job here is to help you, and then to make your dream come true, and then, establish that good relationship, with the local bank, and then as your need expands, you might have to go further, bigger, and that's all part of the journey. And then, we're here to help them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you build your network, you build your own ecosystem, and all of those resources will help you succeed. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
And don't forget your loved ones and family members that are there to support you
They're
too.
part
and
of your
you
network.
need to communicate with them.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a long effort, and it's fruitful and worth it, but bring them along for the ride
Sure.
too.
Yes.
Well, National Entrepreneurship Week is officially February 15th through February 22nd. And here in the Biddeford and Saco area, I'll run down these quickly, but we will have them as part of the credits as we close. February 18th, they're starting a small business in Saco. February 19th, the SBA has office hours at Think Tank in Pepperell Center.
If I can add to that just real quick.
Yeah.
It's preferred that you reach out to me. You can call me on my work cell phone number or email me to schedule an appointment during those times as well.
Yep. Growth Capital, Wednesday the 19th at Furman, Gregory, and DePula at 215 Main Street. SBA opportunities with financing, exporting, and selling to the government. That's Thursday the 20th at the Hampton Inn in Saco. And Women Business Owner Panel with Jean Hewlett at Biddeford Savings Bank, the 21st at your location there on Main Street.
Right. On our community room, second floor from the bank. Yeah.
Now, these are all listed on the Heart of Biddeford's website. So if you go to heartofbiddeford.org, click events, and you will find them all listed right there. So I'd like to thank Jim and Laura and Brad and Molly for joining me today. I hope that this was informative and inspires everyone to at least consider opening up a business and becoming an entrepreneur. So again, I'm Brad Favreau for Believe in Biddeford.